Bobcat Breakdown. The Quinnipiac women's hockey team took down Clarkson but lost to St. Lawrence. Where does this team stand in terms of their level of play? And the Quinnipiac women's basketball team took care of business on their senior day against Niagara. Is this senior class one of the best Quinnipiac has had? All this and more coming up right here, right now. Bobcat Nation, welcome to Studio 125 for another edition of Bobcat Breakdown. I'm your host, Eric Kerr, alongside beat reporters Mike Dalton and Bryan Schwartz. Bryan, last time you guys went against each other, you told me you won this matchup on the desk. Are you expecting a similar result?
Eric, you have to be confident when you're on the desk. That's the key. You have to be confident.
Yeah.
So, of course, I'm always going to beat you in a debate, Mike Dalton.
I don't know. I think I'll just let him win, Boost his confidence.
Yeah, all right. Stop.
Yeah.
Eric, I do want some tacos on Taco Tuesday, though. You got me kind of in the mood right now.
Of course. Tacos are always great for Taco Tuesday. They're in the cafe on Tuesdays as well, so I recommend going to get that. But regardless, let's start with the Quinnipiac women's basketball team, who split last week, losing to Manhattan and winning against Niagara on their senior day. Despite winning 8 out of their past 11 games, the Bobcats have turned the ball over at least 18 times in each of the past 2 contests. Will this type of offensive play take this team down?
Yeah, Eric, yes and no. I'm saying yes in a way because you look at this team and they're a very young team. And what comes with youth? What comes with an experience? Turnovers, mistakes happen. So I don't think turnovers are going to be the downfall for this team. But what could end up being the downfall of this team if they don't win the MAAC championship for another year is that their youth and inexperience is got to play that huge part. And that might turn into some turnovers.
Yeah, Bryan, I do think this is really going to be a downfall if it keeps happening. If they fix it immediately, it won't be. But the only reason they beat Niagara last week was because they're in the cellar of the conference. If the Bobcats do this against Ryder and
I wouldn't say that, though. If you watch that game against Niagara, that was like vintage Quinnipiac women's basketball.
They still turned the ball over 18 times.
Right, but if you watch the game early,
that's not vintage
if you watch the game, no. But again, it's a very different team. It's that youth team.
Yes, no, I understand.
But when you look at that game, they came out and just went off early on. Mm-hmm. They really put the pedal to the metal early on in that first quarter. There was no coming back from that for Niagara, no matter how many runs they went on, because they did have a bunch of big runs later in the game. But Quinnipiac just kind of put their foot on their throats and just went after them. And it was that typical Quinnipiac way that Trisha Fabry has shown that her teams can do the past couple of years.
But they did turn the ball over 18 times, only lost by 10 points.
They won by 10. They won by 10 points.
But, I mean, Niagara...
And they won by a lot more. Niagara just had a lot of fourth-quarter points.
They would have lost by a lot more.
But they didn't. You don't know that.
Well, I'm just saying, I think if they keep it up against Ryder and Fairfield, I think they're going to lose by at least 25.
Maybe not 25, but yeah.
I mean, 18 turnovers could add up to 36 points.
No, I don't disagree with that. They're going to lose those games if they have that many turnovers. But, they played well against Niagara, and maybe that was their next stepping stone to, decreasing that amount of turnovers.
We'll see if Quinnipiac can cut down on those turnovers in future games. But as I mentioned earlier, the team also had their senior day against Niagara last Saturday with an impressive list of accolades from these Cedars, including an NCAA Sweet 16 tournament appearance. How would you guys define their Quinnipiac basketball legacy?
All right, well, I'll start off, I guess. And for me, it is a standard of excellence that has honestly transformed to an expectation. They got 95 wins in their time so far. That's counting. Undefeated in the MAAC tournament, 3 MAAC championships, 3 NCAA appearances. I mean, they have just set the bar to an entirely new level that's now a regular thing. I mean, we don't just hope that they get to the MAAC championship. We honestly expect them to get to a MAAC championship. And if they don't, it's considered a down year, which is pretty crazy to think about. That's just how spoiled Quinnipiac fans have been over these past 3 years for women's basketball, and it's just an expectation for them now.
When you list all those stats, all those wins, all those MAAC titles, what players do you think of on those teams? You think of the Jen Fays, the Aaron McClures, the Paula Stroutmanes, the Carly Fabbris. you don't think of Taylor Hurd and Paige Warfel and Jaden Ward, which is the senior class this year that we're talking about, their legacy. Their legacy is going to be whatever happens this year. If they go out and win the MAAC championship this year, Mike, that's an absurd legacy that they won 4 titles in 4 years, and they led this young team in their 4th year to a title. If they don't win a title this year and, finish 4th, 5th, 6th place, whatever, I'm not going to say they're forgotten about, but they don't have that big of a legacy coming back to quit. You know what I mean? They're playing a big role on this team, but if they don't win, it doesn't matter. They have to win to have that strong legacy. Yeah, they won the last couple of years. They were role players the last few years. Taylor Hurd had a big part on the team last year, as did Paige Warfel. Okay, sure. But the 2 years before that, the 3 of them didn't play a role on those teams.
Well, the thing about those previous teams, though, is that they had a lot of upperclassmen that were just at the top of their game.
Right.
So
I'm not saying that's discounting them. I'm just saying that their legacy is that they were role players on those teams.
And with a young team now, it's like, all right, well, players such as Michaela Morris and Mackenzie DeWeese, they're going to get a lot more playing time compared to Hurd and Warfel, who didn't get a lot because they came in to an experienced team. And so I think that, it would be tough to say that they wouldn't have a strong legacy without those 3 MAAC championships. A 4th one would be all the more better, but I think that whatever happens this season, they're going to have one of the better legacies.
Yeah, absolutely, but they have to win this year to have that outstanding legacy.
We'll see how they do with the upcoming games left in the season. But now, out of these 3 seniors, who would you guys say has had the most impactful career at Quinnipiac? Mike, who do you got?
I got Taylor Hurd, Eric, and this is why. I looked at players over, their 4 years. Jaden Ward, Paige Warfel, Taylor Hurd. Jaden Ward, not that impactful. Paige Warfel, I probably would have said it was no contest, Taylor Hurd, earlier this year, but she is having a career year at Warfel. She's averaging 10 rebounds, 8 points per game. That's pretty good. And Hurd, she's just a versatile player. She's a great 3-point shooter. She's a solid defender. She leads all seniors in career points. She's also one of the bigger personalities on the team. She also just seems to have this very large presence off the court, and I would assume in the locker room as well, because we all know what happens in the locker room stays. But I would think that she is the voice in that locker room as well.
Yeah, I think that is a big part of it. That Taylor Hurd is that presence, that she won 6th Player of the Year last year. She's been that veteran leader on these teams, even as a role player the last few years. I think she's played a big part in that. But if this Quinnipiac team wins this year, if they win a MAAC title, Paige Warfel is the star of this team this year. There's no doubt about that. Averaging 8 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists. That's outstanding. She might be first-team All-MAAC this year. Taylor Hurd's not going to be first-team All-MAAC. We all know that at this point. So what Paige Warfel has done this year is outstanding. She's played well on the defensive end, on the offensive end. Everything has gone well for her this year. And if this Bobcats team is going to make a run in the MAAC tournament, she has to keep that level of play up. And she's going to be the one that we'll think of as the most impactful because of the on-the-court stuff.
And you bring up a fair point that Warfel has played a bigger role this season, but Taylor Hurd has also played just as big of a role.
I'm not
She's second
discounting.
on the team in points, and so I think over her 4-year career, she's the person I think of when I think of class of 2020 for women's basketball.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Mike on this one. I think Taylor Hurd, in terms of the overall resume, is probably the better player in that senior class. Sorry to disagree with you there, Brian, but we're going to head off to the skates now and head to the ice. So the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team also split their games this weekend as well, taking down number 6 Clarkson, but losing to St. Lawrence the next. With the inconsistencies in performance, is this team closer to the level of beating a top team like Clarkson or losing to weaker competition in St. Lawrence?
Yeah, I think they're closer to beating competition like Clarkson. We saw the rankings that just came out today. They're number 10 in the nation, right? And Clarkson was, 5 or 6?
Yep.
Quinnipiac is right up there with them. St. Lawrence isn't a great team. It's one game that they lost. Every good team loses to a bad team every once in a while, right? It happens. Quinnipiac is one of the hotter teams in the country right now. They're rounding into form. Before St. Lawrence, they'd won 9 of their last 12 games. 3 of the losses were to number 5 Ohio State and 1 to number 6 Princeton. So they're only losing to these really good teams. So they're playing at the highest level, and I think that's really important. And it shows that, they can compete against teams like Clarkson.
And to add on to that, this is the third team that the Bobcats have beaten that was a ranked opponent this season, and their third different one too. Plus, the loss to St. Lawrence, you look at it, they only lost 3-2. This is a team that just does not get blown out of the water. I mean, the biggest blowout, I guess you could say, was when they lost 4-1 to Cornell. Cornell's the number 1 team in the nation. They're probably going to make the Frozen Four this year.
And Quinnipiac's not.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, it's now time to announce QBSN's Game of the Week. Women's ice hockey gets their home action in the Battle of Whitney Avenue against Yale this Friday night. With just 2 games left in ECAC hockey play, how crucial is this game for seeding in the conference tournament?
This is going to be the most important game of the year, Eric. Not just because it's the Battle of Whitney Avenue, but because it is a seeding implication game. Yale is the number 5th seed. Quinnipiac is the number 6th seed. They are 2 points behind Yale. A win against Yale this Friday would put them at the 5th seed, and they would have the tiebreaker over Yale because they've beaten them twice already this season. They have a rare opportunity, the Bobcats do. They can beat the same team 3 times in a single regular season, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, how about that? They won the first game 3-1 in the Nutmeg Classic, 3-1 at Yale, and now they get them at home. That is the perfect chance to complete that 3-game sweep this season. And you don't often see that in hockey, or in college hockey at least, where you get to play a team 3 times. To be able to play Yale, who's one of their rivals, 3 times, and to try to beat them 3 times, this is a huge game. Yes, with the standings, but even just against Yale, it's huge.
Yeah.
And they should win.
Yeah, they should win. I honestly
Score?
have them
We
winning
got score?
3-1.
3-1?
Because the past
So,
the
what,
past
all
2
3
games,
games 3-1?
all 3 games
Would that be pretty
3-1.
cool?
It's got to be. It's got to be that. And if the Bobcats move up to the 5th seed, they might be playing Clarkson in the first round.
There you go.
Team that they're undefeated against this year, and so I think that would make an awesome first-round matchup, and it would add to that rivalry as well. The Bobcats had to beat Clarkson in order to win the CAC Hockey Championship back in 2016.
Alrighty, gents, solid debate thus far, but when we come back, Bryan and Mike will tell us their biggest issue that could prevent the Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team from receiving a bid. Plus, we'll hear from the two for what they should do to get the Quinnipiac men's basketball team back in the win column. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. Let's head right back into the action. The Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team came up just short against number 5 Clarkson, while winning against St. Lawrence in dominating fashion. As playoffs come closer, what can prevent the Bobcats from earning an NCAA tournament bid? Bryan, we'll start with you.
Eric, I think the biggest thing going on with this Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team right now is the teams around them. You look at all the teams around, the rest of the schedule that Quinnipiac has is not that good. When you look at the pairwise rankings, right? RPI 40, Union 53, Brown 54, Yale 38. So even winning against teams like those 4, which you have to do the rest of the season, could they move up a couple spots? We don't even know, right? They need the teams in front of them to continue to lose, to continue to have big losses, so that Quinnipiac can move up, and Quinnipiac has to win these games.
Yeah, and honestly, Bryan, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bobcats dropped 1 or 2 of these games as
Right.
well. RPI is a solid program. They've been improving in the past couple of years.
And especially this week where they have to go upstate New York.
Exactly. And I mean, to me, the biggest problem has just been flat out inconsistency. Rand Pecknell has been stressing this all season long. It's as if every game they play a separate one between each period, and that has shown all throughout the season. You can beat a number 1 Cornell team, but then you can beat them to a pulp. I mean, they beat them 5-0. It's not like this was a 2-1, 1-0 game. 5-0 against the top team in the country is pretty impressive. But then you can't make the quick turnaround and beat a number 5 team in Clarkson. I mean, stuff like that I just don't understand. They also lost to Arizona State, who's 11 in the country right now. You would think that they would at least split the series, but I mean, they got swept and they got beaten up both times. So to me, it's just inconsistency for this Bobcat team.
Yeah, you have to get more consistent. Mm-hmm. You have to win these last 4 games, and you have to get lucky a little bit, right? You have to have some of those teams in front of you lose. I think that's what's most important at this point.
But the thing to keep in mind, too, is that the Bobcats are still in a pretty good position. They are
third
third in ECAC hockey, which isn't too bad.
Right, and making a run in the ECAC tournament is very likely and can happen. But when you look at the NCAA tournament, right now they're on that bubble where they may or may not make it. So, again, either those teams in front of them have to drop a little bit, or they have to really make a run in the ECAC hockey tournament.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Bobcats went 4-0 either and went all the way to the ECAC Hockey Championship because they've been so inconsistent this year. We don't know when they can get hot.
Yeah, you guys mentioned the inconsistencies of the men's ice hockey team, but one of the consistencies this weekend was that St. Lawrence game. One of those highlights from that match coming from the weekend was Odin Tufto and his goal through the contact of a St. Lawrence penalty. Men's ice hockey beat reporter Patrick Flatley is here to break it down.
The Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team came out flat tonight against St. Lawrence. They had nothing going for them, but the tides turned on one particular play made by Odin Tufto. Let's take a look.
So not much going on here for Quinnipiac at this time in the game. 4-on-4 right now we're playing, but it's all going to change right here. Bongiovanni makes a great play right here. He chips it right up in the air, gets it over the D stick right to Tufto, and Tufto is off to the races. Now he's going to enter the zone here, and watch how much weight he puts on his outside edges right here. He's just going to lean into this D, and somehow he's just going to flip it with one hand into the top shelf over the goalie who's going for the poke check. Now let's hear what Odin Tufto has to say about that goal himself.
Just try to stick with it, and I don't know, honestly, I don't know how it went down. I got drunk down and just tried to get as much as I could on it, and fortunately it went in, and kind of spoiled the bench, so it was nice to see.
Tufto's goal was big on that breakaway. I don't know. I still don't know how it went in. That really gave us momentum. Make it 1-1, and then.
I mean, that was a really nice play by Tufto, and it kind of just got everyone like, all right, like we can do this. And
we had a good third case.
17 minutes, 29 seconds.
Well, that was certainly some goal from Odin Tufto, but Wyatt Bongiovanni is the team leader in goals thus far this season with 17. Alex Whalen not too far behind, though, with 13. Who will lead the Bobcats in goals by the end of the season? Mike, your turn to go first.
Well, Eric, they're both tied with 13 goals right now, but I think Alex Whalen is going to pull away with it. He's scored 11 goals in the past 13 games. Meanwhile, Wyatt Bongiovanni got off to a really hot start at the beginning of the season, but since then, he's really kind of slowed down in offensive production. He's only scored 5 goals in the last 13 games, and so that's why I got Whalen, Bryan.
Yeah, Wyatt Bongiovanni hasn't scored since February 1st against Colgate, right? That's a long time since he last scored a goal. Alex Whalen is the hot hand right now, and you always have to ride that hot hand. He's got 2 goals in that last game. He's got 4 goals in his last 4 games. So, I mean, right now, if you had to make a prediction, I don't see how you can go against Alex Whalen in this discussion, right?
And I would hope, especially come NCAA tournament time, possibly for the Bobcats, that the seniors would be stepping up.
Yeah.
And another name to possibly throw in the hat is Nick Germain. He's only 2 goals behind Whalen and Bongiovanni right now. I mean, who knows? Maybe he could go on the hot streak in the final 4 games.
How about Odin Tufto, too?
Well, I mean, he's only got 5 goals.
Right, but he's one of these guys that
a couple hat tricks, I guess.
We know what he can. Well, I'm not saying to lead the team in goals, but I'm saying that a guy that can get hot down the stretch of the season.
Yes.
Well, it certainly will be one interesting race for that top goal spot, but we'll make one final switch from the rink to the court. The Quinnipiac men's basketball team has been struggling, losing 9 out of their last 11 games. Guys, what do you think What do you think could fix for this team from what's possibly going wrong with them? Coach Schwartz, what's the game plan?
Coach Schwartz, Eric?
Coach Schwartz, give me the game plan.
Like that.
I'm flattered. Just get back to the basics. This team, I don't really know what's gone wrong with this team, Mike, to be honest with you, because you look at the turnover numbers, they're not that bad. They were bad in that one game against Manhattan. They're just getting blown out in every single game except that game against Manhattan during this losing streak. Yeah, look at that dunk on that screen. How about that? That kind of made me lose my train of thought right there because that was crazy, and that's just the way that it has gone for this Quinnipiac men's basketball team. They've been dominated in the last few games. Everything has gone wrong. You look at Brendan McGuire gets stuffed there. How about this? What a dunk there by Polycap. That was on SportsCenter. Every single play has not been right, and you look at in this video right here. But for this team, my suggestion for this team, mix up the lineup. We've seen that can spark teams. Not saying specifically Quinnipiac because they haven't really changed up the lineup yet this year. What if you put Kevin Marfo and Seth Pinckney in the lineup together? Crazy, right? It's crazy. It hasn't happened all year. Baker Dunleavy has used it a few minutes here and there. But what about playing them like that for an extended period of time, especially this Friday against Canisius? You know why, Mike? Because if you put the two of them down low, what does that do? It stops the Canisius Golden Griffs from coming inside. And guess what? If you force Canisius to shoot from the outside, they're the worst shooting three-point team in the conference. Make Canisius shoot the ball. If you protect the interior, Quinnipiac couldn't win this game on Friday, and that could get them rolling. So I'm putting Marfo and Pinckney together in the rotation.
All right. Well, mine's a little bit different, I guess. My suggestion is to take the playbook, pick it up, and find the nearest recycle bin and throw it in there. Because clearly, nothing is working right now for this Bobcat team. And Bryan, you kind of touched on it. It's not like they're playing, bad. It's not like they're losing the ball to turnovers and stuff like that.
Just that one game they really did.
To me, they have to do something other than just throw up a prayer from three-point range, because that seems to be what they're doing all the time.
The problem is that is their MO. Like, that's what they've done this whole time Baker has been the coach, is they've been that top three-point shooting team. They've had I think they lead the MAAC in three-point attempts by almost 100 or something like that.
But it doesn't seem to be working. It's not
it
like
worked
the
earlier in the
Bobcats are a
season.
top team. Yeah, so now you got to change a little bit. It's it's just like with every season. The game plan always changes throughout the course. And for the Bobcats, three-pointers were working at the beginning of the season, great. But now it's not working, and they've lost 9 of their last 11. So they're going to need to do something. I mean, here's the offense through my eyes in a nutshell. Give the ball to Rich Kelly. Either he shoots a three or he passes it to someone else and they eventually shoot the three. Marfo with the rebound.
Guys, I love the suggestions, but I want to hear some predictions now. How will these next 6 games play out for Quinnipiac? Mike, what's your take?
Well, Eric, I think realistically the Bobcats are going to win 4 of their final 6
King of positivity right here.
I think they'll beat Canisius, Fairfield, and Marist because those are the 3 bottom teams.
Yeah.
I also think that they'll surprise everyone with a win over Iona. Iona is not the same team that they used to be this year. They've won the MAAC
Recently,
a couple
they
times.
are, though.
All right,
The last
so
few
they're
games,
heating up
they're
a
starting to get
little
back.
bit, but it's a good time for the Bobcats to get a real big confidence booster toward the end of the season. I think they're going to lose to Monmouth and Siena. They lost by double digits to both of those teams. They're top 4 teams in the MAAC. I think they will lose to both of them. But I could see a win against Iona.
Yeah, look, I think it all depends on what happens on Friday. If they come out and beat Canisius, they're going to go on a roll. I know that for a fact. This is a home game on Friday. National TV, it's on ESPNU. Friday night game's obviously going to get a lot of fans. Everybody's going to be hyped up for it. You got to end this losing streak right now at home against the worst team in the MAAC, right? Mm-hmm. If they win that game, I could see them going on a roll. I could see them going 5-1 theoretically the rest of the season, maybe losing that Iona game at the end of the year.
You called me king of positive.
Well, I'm not saying they're going to. I'm saying if they win on Friday. If they lose on Friday,
I think that's a stretch.
Good luck, good night, sweet dreams.
Well, it's time for the last break of the night. Stick around to hear our final roars. Stay with us.
I'm Jenny Garth, and as a mother of 3, I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. But here in America, that is a real worry for 1 in 5 children. This is unacceptable, and something Feeding America is working to solve. Through a nationwide network of food banks, Feeding America serves virtually every community in the United States, including yours. See how you can help your community. Visit feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
Gentlemen, it's that time once again. Final roars. Mike, you're up.
Last season, the Quinnipiac softball team had its worst year since 2015, finishing with a 17-33 record. This year, 9 out of 19 players listed on the roster are first years. So this is a very inexperienced team. But the strange thing is that I've never seen a Bobcat team more confident than this one. And that's why they'll surprise the entire MAAC conference this year. The Bobcats were predicted to finish 7th in the 2020 MAAC preseason poll, putting them slightly below average. That tells me that other teams and coaches in the conference, not just the Bobcats, see a lot of potential in this softball team. Alexis Sotero and Lauren King are coming off seasons that saw each of them make the MAAC All-Rookie team. Plus, the Bobcats have the most pitching depth they've had in several years. And the best teams, whether it's baseball or softball, have the best pitching rotations, which is one of the only areas where the Bobcats have a good amount of experience in. Finally, this team is so young, inexperienced, and not seen by most teams as a MAAC title contender. This team has nothing to lose, and sometimes the teams that have nothing to lose end up gaining the most.
The Houston Astros sign-stealing scandal story took over the start of spring training in Major League Baseball. Got me thinking, is this kind of thing happening in other places? Not necessarily the same sign-stealing accusations, because Quinnipiac baseball doesn't even have that sort of advanced technology and capabilities like we talked about a week ago. But just the sense of integrity in all sports, and specifically in athletic departments. I am in absolutely no way speculating anyone has done anything wrong, because I really don't know. But we also didn't know the Astros were banging on garbage cans en route to a World Series in 2017. There's lines that can't be crossed, and that was specifically one. In college sports, whether it's bending the recruiting rules, getting that extra help to stay above the minimum GPA, putting a few shekels on your own team, or even off-the-field matters that get swept under the rug, just know that the information will be spread, people will find out, and your reputation will be lost. The Astros are enemy number one at sports right now. Who's next? Don't let it be you. Have some integrity, unlike the Asterix down in Houston.
We talked a ton about the women's basketball seniors this week, but let's shed some light on some of the younger players on the roster. The first years obviously are the future of this program, and in my mind, Michaela Morris stands above them all. A 3-time MAAC Rookie of the Week winner, along with averaging 9.3 points per game and 6.1 rebounds per game, she has been such a major impact to the roster in just her first year. On offense, she is a master in the low post, with the strength to finish with contact at the rim, the soft touch to make the post hook, and the ability to knock down jumpers 15 feet and in. She requires frequent double teams from many MAAC opponents to slow her down. On defense, she's smart. She doesn't bite for pump fakes, and she stays on her feet to contest shots. The numbers show this is true based on how great of an impact she had against the Manhattan Jaspers. The first time the two played at Quinnipiac, Morris had a double-double with 12 points and 17 rebounds, including 2 blocks. The result? A Quinnipiac win. The next time they faced, she had limited minutes after recently coming back from an injury. This game would be a loss for the Bobcats. Michaela Morris, with her skills and production in just her first year as a Bobcat, will be the Quinnipiac women's basketball player, will be a player that this team will rely on for years to come. Well, sad to say it's the end of the show, but be sure to follow us on Twitter at Q30 Sports for all of our coverage on Quinnipiac Athletics. Be sure to check us out on our website, Q30TV.com, and watch all of our show's content live at Q30TV.com/watch. For Bryan, Schwartz, Mike Dalton, and for all the producers and everyone behind the scenes, I'm Eric Kerr. Have a great day and a better tomorrow.